Hello, everybody. All right, to say I'm not happy is an understatement. I've already edited part 1. I go on to edit part 2. There is no part 2. Part 2 never recorded. One of the problems with atrial fibrillation is you can throw a clot. It's one of the big problems with atrial fibrillation. Oh, God, Jesus. Do I have to start going back to church? I haven't been since I was... Oh, never mind. Why am I talking about that? That was a smooth move, Tober. That was Tober knocking over the entire camera system. Yeah. It's just horrible. I'm having a horrible day. So here's what happened. I went to do part 2. I'm looking for the clip. Well, that should be, here's another clip. Here's a clip. Where's part 2? I said, Eric, is it possible that you sat and wasted 15, 20 minutes talking to a camera that wasn't on? That's all I can figure out, folks. Because the clip that I was looking for was not to be found. So now, I normally wouldn't tell you that, because it normally doesn't happen. But I will say this about that. The reason I am telling you is because if there's any point in the clips that are going to be edited that follow this now where I say something like, as I referred to earlier, you know, when I was talking about whatever, and you're going, hey, wait a minute, you never talked about that. That's because I don't remember now everything I said in clip 2, what would have been clip 2. But I think I have a pretty good idea. So now I get to go back and recreate clip 2 with memory. I don't know. So I saw the beginning of clip 3 when I was looking, and of course it reminded me of one thing that I remember, and this is something very important. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something referring to... I'm looking at the poem and I'm looking at Thrill of the Chase. And I basically was book earing. I was going through my dog ears. And my dog ears... there are always clues, and the clues are, what did I just say? Not sure I have completely recovered from this operation. It really takes it out of you. Hints and clues. These dog ears are usually hints, or things I perceive as hints. So I kind of went through some of them. And I mean, I may now very well talk about something that you hear again in clip 3 or 4, and you go, well, why are you talking about this a second time? It's because I lost clip 2. Alright. Well, here's something I talked about, for sure, and I think it's very very interesting. It's always interested me. See this picture. A lot of us know this picture, right? And you see the clouds, and you see the plane over the clouds. Those clouds, to me, one day it occurred to me that they reminded me very much of a river that you might see on something like Google Earth or Google Maps. And they have very distinctive shapes to them, but maybe only one distinctive shape is really important of all of this. Or maybe none of it's important. The point I'm trying to make is it occurred to me that this could be an actual sketch somewhere of a particular riverbed, course of a river where he buried the treasure along the side of it. We know he's a big fisherman, right? And of course we have a plane. The plane is supposed to be up in the clouds, but maybe the plane is in fact going over a river. And then I'm reminded of something else. I'm looking for more dog ears. I think we'll all remember this, because I also thought this was very strange. Fenn is going down the East Coast. He's flying. He's talking about getting very, very high up. And he's talking about needing oxygen, and he goes through this long-winded, no pun intended, this long-winded way of explaining that he was worried about his oxygen, but he really never, it turns out he never really has an oxygen problem. But he talks about this weird mental state that he gets into. He's trying to keep himself awake, and he says, in order to stay awake, I started playing stupid games, like moving my helmet from left to right and then back and lightly tapping the canopy. That helped. At a certain point, he says, finally I started moving my left hand in and out, looking at my gloves as if I had not seen it before. Then, and for no reason at all, which to me is a telling little few words, I closed my fist, stuck my thumb out, and moved it close to my face, an inch away from my left eye. My God, I had completely covered up Philadelphia. I had covered up millions of people with my thumb. He goes on to talk about that thought. I thought I was getting hypoxic, so I removed my glove, grabbed my flashlight, looked at my fingernails. They weren't purple, so I knew my oxygen was okay. He knows throughout this entire story his oxygen is, quote, okay. It occurred to me that when Fenn talks about covering up Philadelphia while he's got his thumb an inch from his left eye, he is literally telling us the scale of a map to be looking at by saying, if you take your thumb and you put it over your eye an inch away, and then you go to a map and you find Philadelphia and you make that map bigger or smaller, whatever it takes to cover up that thumb, to cover up Philadelphia on your Google Maps, Google Earth, whatever, that is the altitude at which you want to be to look for something. And then, of course, then I go back to that picture of that possible riverbed. Doesn't that sound, though, like he is saying, you know, if you take your thumb, put it about an inch in front of your left eye, and you go look at a map, at the point where you get the map to where it covers up Philadelphia, that's the altitude you want to be at for something. I think that's pretty good thought. I don't know what else these weird things mean that he's always hitting us with. That's a weird story. Oh, and another thing about that picture is, another thing that's weird about that picture is, notice we have point at which it gives us a very distinct loop, and right at that point there is a postal mark. Again, not sure what that means, but if in fact you use that recipe for figuring out the altitude, and you imagine yourself in a plane going over a river, and you find a spot, here he has put this postal mark right next to perhaps something you could see on Google Earth or something. a riverbed, or a formation of some sort. I don't know. I just don't know. It's just a thought. So I thought people might be interested in that. These are just ideas, you know, ideas that I've come up with along the way. And if someone else has already thought of it and it's been said, I remember when I first started doing this, someone said, "Hey man, let's see you watch my videos." You know, and I'm like, what? I'm writing them back. What? He said, "I just watched one of your videos. I mean, that was my idea. And glad to see her." You know, he's very haughty about it. "I was glad to see her watching my videos. Glad to see her, you know." And I was just kind of like, yeah, well, I didn't even know about your video, but it doesn't really matter. It was just kind of funny. I mean, have any of us really had new ideas in this chase at all? I'd be very surprised to find out I've had a new idea. Not to mention all the people that have just had a ton of good ideas on their own and never blogged or even looked at websites. Okay, here is something else I want to talk about. I want to talk about this. Yeah, it's recording. God, that's irritating. Ah, so irritating. This kind of ties in with my solve. My solve, knew where Homer Brown was, potentially could go further on up this area, into this area, past this area, whatever you want to call it. But I couldn't quite, but I realized at a certain point, strangely enough, you'd have to understand the solve to know why this makes sense. You kind of have to calculate where you're going by going backwards at one point. I know we have talked about, you know, there's the famous learning to ride the bicycle backwards. I think on Getting Smarter Every Day or something, the link that got a lot of people going. Fenn linked a thing about, and it was talking about how to ride a bicycle backwards. And of course that could mean anything. It could just mean rethink everything. Take your ideas and, you know, you're wrong and go back and figure them out in a whole different way. I mean, who knows what it meant. But it reminded me, strangely, of the famous string of ball. This is another one of these strange Fenn stories that only Fenn could make up. And you know, if Fenn really did this, then he's totally OCD. But then he is totally OCD. He's a collector, and he is really... I mean, that guy loves to collect. There's the famous picture of him sitting in his... I don't know where he is. He's in some big room. And it is so packed with Native American Indian paraphernalia that it's almost... well, it is humorous to me. I mean, he's sitting there and he's, you know, got like a peace pie. I forget what he's got, but he's like in this chair, and I mean, every inch of the walls, every inch, everywhere you could put something, it's all Indian stuff, and it's a really extraordinary picture. That's a guy who collects a lot. That's a guy who, you know, when he describes when he was a kid with the bottle cap collecting and all that, obsessive compulsive disorder. But you know, OCD, like a lot of mental disorders, in their proper place can be a good thing. I know someone who is a nurse, has OCD, diagnosed OCD. Literally. It was good for her job. She would triple check charts when she would go into a room. She would triple check the chart. She caught mistakes that could have potentially hurt people with medications being screwed up. Because she would sit there and read it over and over and go, oh, that's OCD. But a lot of things are OCD. Collecting's OCD. So, I mean, it can be if it's really out of hand. Well, I would say this is OCD. When you have collected and tied together bits of string, bits and pieces of string, to the point where you have a ball of string. Soon I had a multicolored ball that got larger and larger with each tie-on. I hoped to tie on at least 3 strings a day, and after a year or so the ball was so large it couldn't go through my bedroom door. I'm looking at my door here. Bedroom door is pretty, that looks like about 3.5 feet to me. 3 feet? That's a big damn ball of string. And one afternoon when I walked home, now imagine this going on in your house. Then one afternoon when I walked home from school in the rain, my string had disappeared. It just wasn't there anymore. I tried to explain to my mother that since the ball couldn't get out of my room, it was somewhat difficult for anyone to steal it. His mother, strangely, she didn't answer, but just kept nodding and looking out the window. Mom, Mom, someone stole my huge ball of string that I've got in my door because apparently I've got OCD and it's gone. Strange story, right? Mom doesn't answer. I think she was watching for the postman or something. Even to this day, the mystery of what happened to my string ball remains one of the great unsolved crimes in my family. Fenn, to my way of thinking, at least when I read it, my first thought is, okay, well, how would you get the ball of string out? He's almost asking you to answer him. Okay, what do you think happened? How do you think you would get the ball of string out of the door? This humongous ball of string. I mean, I tell you, if I had friends over and I had a son like Forrest Fenn, and I'd make sure the door was, his bedroom door was closed so he didn't have friends going, the hell is that in Forrest's room? Or so, oh, that's his ball. A ball of string, my lord, is that boy seen a doctor? I mean, that's pretty far out, right? But, so I thought about it, and I thought, well, I guess my first thing, I guess it would maybe take some time, but I would unravel the ball of string to get it out of the room. I would at least unravel it far enough for it to be that size. You don't have many other options to get it out of the room. So Forrest, in a way, is trying to, at least to me, he's trying to say, think of having accumulated something and then unraveling it back. And I'm applying that to my solve, or rather, it kind of fits with my solve. I can see how it would fit with my solve. I just think that's interesting. What else have I been thinking about? So many unusual stories in Thrill the Chase. Just to me, chock full of, we have the famous teachers with ropes, that thing. We have 6 kids, and then we have the teacher with the, did I say with ropes? Yeah, with ropes crossing the street. Who knows what that means? If anything, maybe it's just a real thing that happened when the kids came to visit. They had them, they did stuff like that. Lots of reality mixed in with, I remember now that clip being screwed up. Gosh darn it. I remember the time didn't change for a while, and then it seemed like it had changed, and I don't know, I think